The Pine Barrens in New Jersey isn't exactly the place you would expect for a high-stakes danger, a tranquil town with endless woods where paintball season lasts all year round. The peace of both the small town and its surrounding forest is broken when a rogue predator decides to play killer, embarking on a murder spree, leaving panic and bloodshed in its wake. Fear not, for the CIA is on the case, but wait. Can they be trusted? Are they really interested in only stopping the killer? Or is there a larger conspiracy at play? They're not the only ones hot on the predator's tail. There is also a team of ex-CIA agents with their own agenda, and a surprising warrior. Who are the good guys? Who are the bad? Let's find out. In this video, we will take a look at the 4-issue limited comic book series, Predator Bad Blood, written by Evan Dorkin, penciled by Derek Thompson, and inked by Keith Aiken. Of paintball and predators, southern New Jersey. A red pickup truck is driving through a rural road in the woods, followed by a few other cars. A radio broadcast informs of a high-stakes hostage situation unfolding in Gainesville, Florida. The pickup truck breaks down in the middle of the road, much to the annoyance of the cars behind it. The driver tries getting his truck to move. "Damn it, I keep telling Chris to fix this damn truck," he mutters, as the honking of the horns of the cars behind him only grows louder. The broadcast continues with updates about a triple homicide wherein the police have made an arrest but are wary of the volatile situation. Behind the pickup truck, 2 men in a pink car heckle the driver of the red pickup to move it. The heckling and the honking continues as the pickup truck driver reaches his tolerance limit too. He takes out a machine gun and fires at the car as the broadcast syncs perfectly, reporting the perpetrator of the triple homicide is armed and dangerous. Someone really does not like to be messed with. Thankfully, it turns out the gun was a paintball gun. Firing paintballs as the pickup truck driver starts his car, hitting back at the hecklers and telling them they should count their stars. He isn't a madman. He scoffs at them, telling them to move their vehicle as it is blocking the way now. Painted on the side of the pickup truck is the logo and business details of a paintball arcade by the name of Body Count. The driver takes the exit onto the paintball grounds, thinking to himself how the paintball bullets he fired would have been real bullets from a real gun if it were 3 years ago. The radio broadcast continues on to recount the gruesome tale of an 86-year-old grandmother setting her wheelchair-bound husband on fire, following an argument over his refusal to let her watch the Home Shopping Network. The host cuts the dramatic tension and tries to make light of the story, cheering for the grandmother, saying, "You tell him, Grandma," as the broadcast moves on to the weather report. As he approaches the paintball range, the driver of the red pickup truck notices squad cars parked on the side of the road. Noticing the policeman examining a scene, he wonders why they showed up. His mind reels with the possible reasons for police presence at the paintball grounds. Hoping he isn't in trouble for a paint gun he fired at the hecklers, the driver parks his car and makes his way down the hill to talk to the police officers. On his way, he wonders whether one of the lawyers who rented the field had an accident. He resolves to sue Chris if they file a lawsuit against him. Again, the broadcast syncs perfectly with reports of thunderstorms and rain, warning of a tough night ahead. The driver introduces himself as John Polnick and tells them that he is the owner of the paintball grounds. He asks the officers what the issue is as one of them coughs uncontrollably and moves to the side as he's choking. Polnick asks the officers where Chris Hudson, his employee, is. He looks around and notices the gates of the grounds are open and his dogs are nowhere to be seen as well. Polnick asks the policeman follow-up questions related to these strange occurrences. He further asks them whether Deputy Kelso and Sheriff Potts are at the scene. A policeman holding a cigarette tells him Kelso's out, but we may need him, and informs Polnick they have a problem while another police officer scratches his neck. Polnick is informed that the police have no knowledge of the whereabouts of Chris. They are waiting on the state troopers and forensic experts from Mill Valley to arrive at the scene and provide more information. Hearing this, Polnick is gripped by worry and asks Warren, the police officer he is talking to, what really happened in the forest and why the forensic team is being called in. Another officer tells him not to venture into the woods as there is nothing left for him or the police to do. Dust kicks up violently as one of the policemen loses his hat. Shocked by what he is seeing, a chopper lands on the scene, announcing the arrival of the federal authorities, asking everyone to stay still. They declare the area is under federal jurisdiction and the crime scene investigation is being taken over by the federal agents. Polnick looks up at the chopper with his hands on his hips and mutters, "Oh no," foreshadowing the worst is yet to come. Claude Loudermilk arrives at the scene, followed by a horde of FBI agents, ordering them to get word back to Langley of their arrival. He also instructs them to have Agent Dietz confirm the search, target and vehicle, and states he will have more air support arrive at the scene, soon emphasizing the gravity of the situation. As he's walking up to Sheriff Warren, Polnick recognizes him and anxiously thinks to himself why he's at the scene. Loudermilk walks up to Sheriff Warren, ordering him to clear all the civilians from the scene. Warren protests, putting his fisted hands on his hips, and says, "What the hell do you suits and ties think you're doing here? I didn't call." He is interrupted by Loudermilk, who is offended by Sheriff Warren's words. While this is happening, Polnick thinks to himself, the sheriff should back off as he knows Loudermilk and is sure he will never listen to a small town sheriff. And if he's here, then I know something's going on I don't want to be a part of, he tells himself. Loudermilk introduces himself to the sheriff and tells him mockingly that the government appreciates his concern and gets to work. He asks Agent Garvin to escort the local police out of the area and orders other agents to cuff Polnick and take him into custody for interrogation. Polnick resists as Warren tries to vouch for him, telling Loudermilk they are suspecting the wrong man and that Polnick is innocent. He breaks free, knocking out the agents holding him, and makes a run for it as Loudermilk calls out to him, yelling Polnick, while Sheriff Warren tries warning him and shouts he's making a mistake. He tears through the police tape used to cordon off the scene as Loudermilk orders more agents to keep people from entering the forest. Polnick runs into the forest, thinking to himself how he was sure he would be able to outrun the FBI agents, as he knows the forest better than anyone else. Arriving at a clearing, he stops and looks up at something in suspicion. Realizing something is off, he takes off his glasses and his jaw drops to the floor at the sight before him. Corpses, both animal and human, smeared in blood, lie smattered on the forest floor and hang from tree branches. Polnick is horrified and wonders, God in heaven! He further thinks to himself that either someone brought real bullets to a paintball match or somebody holds a serious grudge against lawyers. He inches closer to examine the scene and reflects on how it is no laughing matter. Polnick realizes why Sheriff Warren was so shaken up. He draws comparisons to his past experiences as a war veteran. He had seen his fair share of combat and bloodshed during his tours in Beirut, Afghanistan and Croatia, but nothing like this. He wonders whether it was the work of a guerrilla group gone berserk, but that seems highly unlikely in New Jersey. Continuing on, Polnick notices the corpses of his guard dogs Duke and Medusa, and notices Chris's knife among the carnage. He deduces Chris must have also been a victim. Polnick looks around, trying to locate Chris's corpse, but doesn't see it anywhere. His mind reels, trying to make sense of the brutality. Dead lawyers and decapitated dogs and Loudermilk's threats. What could it possibly mean? Polnick notices a strange weapon lodged into one of the corpse's legs. Pondering its abnormal size, he wonders what kind of a maniac would wield a weapon like that. He strains to dislodge it, but it doesn't move. Just as he's about to give up, the strange sword-like weapon lets out a sound, and Polnick's knuckles fill with blood. Letting out a loud hiss, a bad blood predator ambushes Polnick, picking him off the ground as he screams in terror. He pulls at the predator's dreadlocks, trying to free himself from its grip, and the predator punches him in the face, knocking him over. A dreadlock comes loose in his hand in the process. Dislodging the strange weapon from the corpse with ease, the predator wields it as Polnick is sent skidding on the ground. Polnick manages to kneel up, holding on to his side and balancing on one of the corpses. Looking at the decapitated head on the creature's belt, Polnick recognizes it as Chris. A voice suddenly calls out, "John, where are you?" Polnick turns around with a horrified look on his face as the voice continues, reasoning with him to think rationally and that they can talk to the FBI. Polnick did not need to run. Polnick urges the sheriff to get back, and before he can say another word, the sheriff and an officer who had accompanied accompanied him are attacked. The predator slices off the officer's hand, wielding a gun, as the two policemen let out agonizing screams. Back at the arena entrance of the paintball grounds, an officer, Officer Simmons, seeks Loudermilk's permission to begin searching Polnick's truck. Loudermilk shushes him. He points out the sound of the agonizing screams coming from the forest and how it abruptly stopped. Loudermilk notes, "That's a long time for grown men to scream." Another officer asks him whether it was an FBI agent. Loudermilk says he hopes that's not the case, but it would take care of one problem if it were someone else. Just as he's about to complete his sentence, Polnick comes running and yells Loudermilk's name to get his attention. Loudermilk turns around, disappointed. Polnick leans against his truck, panting. In between breaths, he tells Loudermilk about the creature in the forest and how it killed Sheriff Potts. He says he realizes how unbelievable it sounds, but the situation is dire. Loudermilk tells Polnick he is not only aware of the situation, but believes Polnick as well. Shocked, Polnick confirms whether what he heard was right. Loudermilk tells him the predator is the reason the FBI got involved. Polnick is disgusted by this and opens the door of his truck to get in. Loudermilk tells him to step away from the truck as he is to stay under the FBI's watch. Polnick disobediently gets in his car and pulls his paintball gun, telling Loudermilk to move. He declares he is leaving and he will kill anyone who pursues him. He starts up his truck, still pointing his gun at the agents, prompting one of them to say his threats are harmless as he's holding a paintball gun. Polnick taunts him, saying if he is so confident, why would he not make any moves attempting to stop Polnick? Polnick drives off as one of the agents asks Loudermilk whether he should follow him. Loudermilk tells him to pull focus from Polnick as they have other important matters at hand, and Polnick has already slowed them down. He orders them to deploy the full FBI unit as their mission is on. Polnick does not know what he has gotten himself into, but has confirmed their suspicions. Loudermilk also says Polnick is oblivious to how well he knows him and the town. A good agent improvises when situations change, and I'm far better than good. I believe I know where we'll catch up with Polnick and how to use him when we do, he boasts. He orders his agents to get in touch with the sheriff's deputy Richard Kelso and inform him of the FBI's involvement. Orders also go out to report back to Langley of target confirmation and the severity of the situation. The agent gets Kelso on the phone and Loudermilk tells him to put him on hold. Loudermilk further orders the detainment of any civilians who witnessed the massacre. He says the target is somewhere in the area, and if it breaches the perimeter, it will go berserk in the town, the Pine Barrens. Loudermilk resolves to not let that happen. He also instructs the agents to track down the predator's mode of transportation, as he suspects it will try to get to it, and orders them to lock down the area. The mission must be kept a secret. While this is happening, another predator lands his drop pod in the forest in full armor and sets out to locate the murderous predator. Polnick arrives at Kelso's house and runs in. Announcing himself hastily, he's about to ask him for help, but Kelso holds him at gunpoint and tells him not to move. Noticing the news broadcast, Polnick realizes the FBI has declared him a fugitive wanted in the brutal massacre. Kelso tells Polnick the FBI called him and briefed him about the situation. He says he will be turning him in. Polnick says they're not the FBI, but the CIA, and that he is being framed. Kelso is unconvinced. Polnick further reasons, asking Kelso to let him make a phone call to clear his name and find the actual killer. Reaching into his pocket, Polnick says he has something that might convince him. He shows Kelso the dreadlock he tore off in his encounter with the predator and tells him about the creature in the woods. Polnick reiterates that the men who called Kelso posing as the FBI are in reality the CIA, and Polnick has history with them. Throwing him the dreadlock and a piece of paper, Polnick tells Kelso to call the number on it as there is a lot to clear up, and appeals to Kelso's better nature as he kneels to investigate it. Polnick questions that if the people who called him are in fact FBI, how did they get wind of the massacre and arrive so fast? Suddenly, Polnick is knocked down by the butt end of a rifle. Agents in tactical gear enter the house and ask Kelso to come with them and retrieve his gun. They thank him for his cooperation in helping them nab a crazed killer and putting a stop to the murders. As he watches Polnick's unconscious body being dragged away, Kelso wonders whether Polnick was actually telling the truth. Meanwhile, in the forest, two agents are hunting the predator. As they're making their way through the forest, one of them asks the other why the predator keeps the decapitated heads. The other says it is unclear and points out that the predator cannot be judged by human standards. Possible reasons could be ritualistic, or it is collecting keepsakes, or it's just one sick psycho bastard, he continues. His friend compares the predator to Jeffrey Dahmer and asks him whether he's encountered them before. The other agent replies in the negative and says he does not even want to and moves forward. Suddenly, he hears a strange voice repeating his own words to him. Assuming it is his friend teasing him, he turns around to find the predator dangling his friend's head from its hands. The FBI has turned an abandoned hospital into their makeshift base of operations. Loudermilk questions Kelso, who tells him Pulnick only mentioned his innocence and did not provide any information about a man named Graves. He's interrupted by an agent who informs him about the fate of the two fallen agents, Miller and Ing. Loudermilk asks for a status update and is informed of the agent's demise about 10 minutes prior. Hearing this, Kelso finally realizes the truth and is convinced Pulnick is innocent. Pulnick is being held in one of the rooms in the hospital. Loudermilk visits Pulnick, who is tied up to the bed, and reminisces about the time they spent together in the CIA. He breaks the news that his employee Chris Hudson was an undercover CIA agent planted to retrieve information about Pulnick's old CIA buddies, Agents Graves, Smith, and West. Pulnick asks Loudermilk what the creature in the forest was. Loudermilk tells him he's hunting a hunter from space who kills for fun using energy weapons and a spacecraft with camouflaging technology. Realizing he is not getting any information from Pulnick, he makes his way to the door to leave and informs Pulnick he's being transferred to Langley for further questioning. Loudermilk makes one final attempt, asking Pulnick where the agents are, and is surprised when he hears, "Right behind you, scumbag." Both Pulnick and Loudermilk are taken aback as Pulnick is set free, while Loudermilk is held at gunpoint. Turns out, Kelso called them in, and he decides to join them in taking down the predator. Predator versus Pulnick and gang. The CIA realise a little too late that their base is being attacked after multiple reports of incapacitated officers. Garvin rushes in to inform Loudermilk of the situation, only to find him cuffed to the bedpost. Garvin stands there, in shock, as Loudermilk screams, "Stop dribbling and get me the hell out of these handcuffs!" Garvin complies and apologises as Loudermilk nurses the wound on his head. He says he did not know there was a missing ambulance. Pulnick and his friends got away in one, and all signs pointed to a targeted attack he assumed was being carried out by the predator. Loudermilk says they were under attack, but as should be clear to even the bluntest agent here, we were not invaded by our target, he remarks angrily. He continues berating his team for standing idly by, while 3 people and a lowly deputy breached their base and made off with Pulnick, his prisoner, in an ambulance. Garvin informs Loudermilk the predator's mode of transportation has not yet been tracked down, and its last recorded location was the woods agents Miller and Ing were tragically murdered in. Their bodies are being brought in, albeit without their heads. Loudermilk declares they have 5 targets apart from the predator in the forest. Garvin asks Loudermilk whether he is sure Pulnick and his team are heading for the Pine Barrens, pointing out that they would be walking straight into CIA patrols. Loudermilk says he is sure as he knows the men and orders a search and destroy operation on Pulnick and his team. He goes on to say Pulnick would not be satisfied by merely escaping, he would also go after the predator. Loudermilk is convinced Pulnick is headed to the Pine Barrens to hunt the predator, accompanied by his crew. The gang arrives at the forest in a car. Pulnick asks Kelso whether he is sure the ambulance they used to make their initial escape could be tracked down. Kelso says it does not matter as the CIA will not be able to locate them, even if they deduce vehicles were swapped. Turning to Pulnick, he says, "Now John, I've got a question for you." He asks Pulnick to introduce him to his friends, and also wants to know where they got their guns. Realising he forgot his manners, Pulnick proceeds to introduce his old friends from the Central Intelligence Agency. "For 7 years we put bullets in America's enemies, all for God, country and Claude Loudermilk," he continues. One by one, he introduces his ex-CIA team teammates. Philip Smith, who tips his hat in greeting Deputy Kelso and tells him his town is nice. Robert Graves and Mandy West. Mandy corrects Pulnick, saying she changed her surname to Graves after she married Robert, following their unofficial exit from the CIA. Kelso asks the trio whether all of them are AWOL from the CIA. He is informed they all are. A sad tale of deception, heartbreak and tragedy. Buy the paperback, blah blah blah. Pulnick clarifies he was the only one who retired, and before they disbanded, they decided to keep in touch and stay under the radar with new identities unless it was an emergency. Smith teases Pulnick, saying getting arrested by Loudermilk counts as an emergency, but finds it hard to believe his story about a monster on the loose. Pulnick says it is no joking matter, as there is a monster running amok who has already killed friends of Kelso and his. He passes on the information he got from Loudermilk, that the monster was from another planet, and that it is hunting humans. Mandy Graves says she is not going to be hunted, not while her finger that works the trigger is still there. Robert agrees with her. Smith declares they are all in agreement. If the monster is real, it is going to die. Shocked by their nonchalance, Kelso waves the Predator's dreadlock, the one that Pulnick has pulled apart on his encounter with the Predator, in Smith's face, underlining the gravity of the situation. "Are you deaf? It's killed at least 50 people, he says, exasperated. Graves coldly says she has killed more people than that. Kelso is shocked as the group unanimously trusts Pulnick and points out that after all that they have witnessed in war, death does not scare them. Everyone's got to die sometime, are the words that hang ominously in the air as another CIA team of 3 hunts the Predator. The group of CIA paramilitary officers make their way through a forest, complaining about the abnormal weather and how it is interfering with their temperature sensors, even though it has stopped raining. They continue on with the real threat of being open to attack, as the Predator is using camouflage technology and can attack from anywhere. Another officer complains about the nature of the assignment and how bad it is. He asks for an update about the air support they had called in. To his dismay, he is informed they have not heard back and their radio communications are down. Sarcastically, the agent says, "Terrific, everything's screwed up in these crazy woods." They approach a creek and the third officer asks them to quieten down as he thinks he sees something. Amidst the blue waters runs a steady stream of red. The officers cautiously approach the area, cocking their guns in anticipation to investigate, and are shocked to see skulls propped up on sticks used to fence the area. Before they even have time to react, the Predator attacks. The creature lets out a thunderous roar as fear and panic courses through the officers. One of them mutters in terror, realizing the situation is much worse than they expected. The Predator violently attacks, murdering 2 of the 3 officers gruesomely. Panicking, the surviving officer takes out his mace, praying to God that it works. It does, for a while, as the Predator's hand catches on fire, but it's not quite long before the Predator rips through the officer and tears him apart. The Predator roars in pain and tries putting out the fire by dipping his hand in the stream. With a loud hiss, the fire goes out. The Predator notices pictures of Pulnick and his accomplices that most likely fell out of the officer's pockets. Picking up Pulnick's photograph, the Predator lets out a deafening roar, signalling the worst is yet to come. Meanwhile, back at the clearing, Pulnick and his team get off the car as Kelso informs them they have to traverse the rest of the way on foot. Graves regrets having to leave all her guns behind. Pulnick wishes they had C4 or other similar explosives, which would give them a hefty advantage. Smith says they were not given enough notice and packed what they could. He also notes they had been driving for 4 hours and have not come across anything unusual. Smith questions the vastness of the forest. Kelso informs him it is quite large as it spans more than 1,700 square miles. He goes on to explain the Pine Barrens is so vast that villages exist within it and the natives live in huts without electricity. The entire area is isolated from civilization and is said to be the birthplace of the legend of the Jersey Devil. Kelso continues explaining that the legend dates back to the 1700s. The story goes as such. A woman in the Pine Barrens gave birth to a child who was cursed. It is believed the child flew off and began preying on children. Kelso also adds some of the locals still believe the legend legend is real. Smith chimes in, saying maybe the monster Polnick saw was none other than the Jersey Devil. Graves asks, "How do you expect us to find out, boy, in this bigger woods?" prompting Polnick to reply that they will not. The predator will show itself, as no hunter would sit still after losing its prey. Meanwhile, another unit of CIA agents led by Dr. Kalori finally locate the predator's means of transportation. They call it in, noting it has landed in the murky marshes of the Pine Barrens. They proceed slowly and cautiously to investigate further, well aware of the dangers. As they approach, Dr. Kalori realizes their communications are dead, the most possible reason being interference from the pod. He proceeds to record their findings. Entering the ship, he notes the hull was damaged by consistent firepower. So far, he observes, the ship appears deserted. Suddenly, someone yells his name, calling him to check what they have discovered. The doctor can hardly believe his eyes. He sees at least 6 corpses of other predators, which were obviously dead before the craft crashed in the Pine Barrens. The corpses exhibit unmistakable signs of disembowelment, dismemberment, and cannibalism. Dr. Kalori further notes that if the predator is responsible for the massacre, it would constitute an unrecorded phenomenon of a species acting in a predatory fashion towards its own kind. They notice an alarm going off nearby, as one of them, named Dietrich, goes to check. The doctor tells him to not touch anything. As Dietrich explains, it is just a flight log showing evidence that the ship was shot down by pursuant predator. All of a sudden, the ship starts jerking violently, and Dr. Kalori realizes it was a booby trap. Before he can complete his sentence ordering everyone to disband, the ship blows up in a loud explosion that also sends the other predator, the enforcer, who had arrived to take down the murdering Bad Blood, flying. Polnick and his pals hear the explosion as Kelso wonders aloud whether the CIA were successful in their mission. Polnick rolls his eyes, saying that it is highly unlikely as they were able to escape from right under the CIA's nose. He tells his crew they should check out the site and explains how fortunate they are that the forest is wet, as the Pine Barrens are normally dry at this time of year, and an explosion of that magnitude would engulf the entire forest in flames. Smith quips, "Fire is God's cleanser," as Polnick points out they would be dead too if the forest was on fire. He dismissed Polnick and says, "A good fire could do wonders for this place. It looks like hell already. All it needs are the flames." Meanwhile, the enforcer walks away from the fiery wreckage of the homicidal Bad Blood predator's ship. Smith continues. His Pine Barrens is hell rant as they approach a clearing, complaining and cribbing. Among questions of asking the time, they come across an outhouse, prompting Smith to note its absurdity. Kelso hears stirring in the trees as a decapitated head rolls in their direction. Without a second thought, they open fire. Polnick asks them to stop after a few rounds as Kelso points out the decapitated head was Sheriff Potts. A severed and bloody hand approaches them next as Smith yells at Polnick to kick it. Another round of gunfire echoes through the woods. Smith comments, "I've heard of throwing down the gauntlet, but this is..." Having had enough of his consistent commentary, Polnick tells him to zip it. Polnick declares the predator has located them and insists that they should make it feel sorry for doing so. Kelso points out he hears a persistent rustling in the woods, and it seems like something or someone is moving towards them hurriedly. Polnick tells his crew to fall back, preparing for the fight of a lifetime. A large group of CIA officers approach Polnick and his pals, asking them to drop their weapons as they are outnumbered. Exasperated, Polnick says he does not have time to waste and quickly orders Kelso to watch their back while the rest are asked to pick their targets. Shocked, Kelso asks whether Polnick is serious. Robert points out that if they don't go on the offense, the CIA will not hesitate to gun them down. Graves cocks her gun, ready to shoot. Before she pulls the trigger, however, a spear impales a CIA officer. The officers are caught unaware as the predator indiscriminately kills them. Smith is shell-shocked, seeing the predator with his own eyes as his jaw drops to the floor. Polnick says, "Happy Smith, believe me now," and asks him to stop standing there staring and help him take down the predator. Graves tells Polnick to stay low as the CIA officers are firing indiscriminately and advises them to stay put till the predator finishes killing the CIA officers, noting it should be over soon. Polnick orders his crew to surround the predator as he plans to launch a coordinated all-around attack. Before they can act, the enforcer leaps down on the Bad Blood as Robert points out there are not one but two predators. The two predators fight it out, the homicidal one expertly dodging the enforcer's attacks as the CIA officers are caught in the crosshairs. Kelso asks Pulnick what is happening. Pulnick admits he isn't quite sure, but suggests they side with the enforcer, who is currently on the losing side. Smith says they should even the odds with some firepower as the homicidal predator leaps over Pulnick and attacks Smith. The Graves open fire and try to shoot down the bad blood predator, who makes his escape. Back at the hospital base, Loudermilk receives information about the presence of two predators in the Pine Barrens and decides to check it out for himself. This entire situation has completely gone out of hand, he declares. Back in the Pine Barrens, the enforcer holds his spear dangerously close to Pulnick's chest, with the Gravers pointing their guns at him while the forest floor is smattered with corpses. Nobody wants to die in New Jersey. The enforcer has Pulnick on the ground on the pointy end of its spear. The Graves ask him to stay put and get ready to move over once they confirm they have a clear shot. Pulnick seems calm given the circumstances and tries to get Mandy and Robert's attention. Mandy stands resolute to empty her gun into the creature before Pulnick stops her, saying he doesn't think the enforcer wants to kill him. He pleads with Graves, asking her to back up and lower her gun. She hesitates, prompting Pulnick to reiterate that if the enforcer wanted him dead, he would have already killed him. Graves is convinced and lowers her gun. This makes the enforcer retract his spear as well, and holding his hand up, it slowly backs away. Pulnick tells his team to let it go as their fight is not with this predator. They watch as the enforcer disappears in the trees. Robert is impressed by its agility, prompting him to comment, "How could something so hellish move so beautifully?" Smith gains consciousness after being knocked down by the homicidal predator and groggily teases Robert. He asks him to help him up and put his brains back in his head. Robert asks him to stay still as he has sustained a nasty head wound with blood running down his head. Holding his head to stop the bleeding, Smith demands to know why Pulnick let the other predator get away. Pulnick replies he did not have much of a choice. They all saw what happened, he adds, and from the looks of it, that predator is not hunting humans. It wants to take down the homicidal one, and, if they are fortunate enough, it might even be successful in its mission and do the job for them. Graves suddenly notices their team is missing a member as the group realizes it is Deputy Kelso. Turns out, Kelso was taken hostage by the CIA agents that Pulnick and his pals had encountered earlier. One of them pulls his rifle on Kelso, warning him to not push his luck as he will pull the trigger without hesitation and could not care less if the maniacal predator chooses to wear the deputy's face. However, Kelso is more useful alive as they can use him as a bargaining chip to get Pulnick and his ex-CIA friends to drop the Guerrilla Squad act. He orders Kelso to keep walking before he changes his mind. Kelso apologizes for shooting at him. However, his apology is cut off with a sharp reply from the agent. Kelso will be more than sorry once Loudermilk gets a hold of him. He orders the deputy to keep moving without uttering another word. Agent Taggart decides to radio in air support to get them out of the Pine Barrens. "The sooner we're up and out of here, the bit," he continues, but is interrupted. The predator attacks the team viciously as the agents scatter like rats trying to get away. One by one, they are massacred as Kelso looks on helplessly. Overwhelmed by the carnage, he tries to flee as one of the officers feebly calls out to him, asking for help before he meets his grim fate. Realizing he is the last man standing, he makes a run for it and is afraid to look back, but is tempted. He turns around and locates one of the CIA agent's guns and squats beside the corpse in anticipation. The predator suddenly appears behind him and in an instant brutally murders the deputy as the gun goes off. Firing at nothing, Pulnick and his pals stumble upon the scene in search of Kelso, unaware of his untimely demise. He regrets sending Kelso out into the Pine Barrens alone to provide them cover. Smith investigates the mutilated bodies and questions whether Kelso ran away. Pulnick says he hopes he did and also that he made it out to safety. Robert informs his team they discovered 2 trails of the green alien blood belonging to the predators, but could not find any sign of Kelso. "Kids, I got lots of chatter on their radio. That second alien's thrown everyone for a loop. They got more troops. some choppers. Everything but John Wayne's ghost. Smith reports. Polnick thinks quickly on his feet. He realizes they need to keep moving as they have to follow the trails of blood before the CIA arrive. Polnick begrudgingly calls off the search for Deputy Kelso, prioritizing their initial mission. 2 helicopters hover above the Pine Barrens, signaling the arrival of the CIA. Inside one of them, a CIA agent jokes that the homicidal predator rustled a few feathers, or rather dreadlocks, back on his home planet, sarcastically calling him a popular guy. Another chimes in, saying the second predator might be a police version of the alien, being comparing it to their ranks, and turns to Loudermilk for an answer. But Loudermilk just sits there, hunchbacked and exasperated, his cigarette hanging loosely from his mouth and his palm to his head, probably thinking he is dealing with incompetence. The homicidal predator notices the choppers and turns its attention to a spider's web. It picks out the bug from the intricate web and squishes it, as Polnick, Robert, Mandy and Smith make their way through the forest. Robert tells Polnick he should stop blaming himself. They had already talked it through. They made their choice when they decided to stand with Polnick and fully intend to see it through with him. He insists Polnick go easy on himself, as losing Kelso was not his fault. Graves tells him he is making more noise tearing himself apart than the helicopters above, but Polnick persists, still regretting not having a proper plan before coming into the Pine Barrens to hunt down the predator. With Kelso gone, we're blind, he admits. Little does he know. Mandy points out they already have a plan, and it is simple to follow the trails of blood and shed more blood. Robert agrees with her, saying that plan works perfectly fine for him. Polnick says that plan is no good anymore, as the blood trails have disappeared, and his best guess is that both the predators are lurking in the trees. He continues, the creatures could be anywhere in the Pine Barrens, wreaking more uncontrollable havoc. Turns out Polnick was right, at least about the other predator, the enforcer, who is up on a tree, nursing its bleeding leg as blood trickles down. Smith hopes aloud they get lucky, and both predators are bleeding to death. The enforcer keeps moving in search of the homicidal predator. Polnick reiterates the armoured predator does not pose a threat to them, but Smith is not buying it and says they don't know anything about the predator species. Just because the enforcer is here this time hunting its own and is dedicated to the mission of taking down its homicidal counterpart, there is no guarantee it won't come back to Earth again and go on a human-killing spree. Continuing, he stands his ground, saying he doesn't care whether he comes off as xenophobic, but they aren't discussing immigrants. They are dealing with an entire race of murderers. Takes one to know one, Phil, Polnick remarks. He admits their best chance of putting an end to the murders is the enforcer. In another part of the forest, 3 men are sitting around a fire as their dog barks loudly. One of them, James, tries calming the dog, calling out to it. Another says the sound of the helicopters above is scaring the dog. That and the drunk hunters who are shooting indiscriminately. He comments that most of the hunters do not even eat what they kill, prompting the other one to comment on the brutality of the act, calling it murder. Lurking nearby, the predator eyes them with a murderous intent. Smith is exasperated and tired as he realizes they do not know where they are and seem to have lost their way. The makeshift bandage he tied on his head is completely soaked through, red with blood. He thinks back to his time in the CIA, where they at least had access to medical aid when needed. He suddenly notices the CIA drawing closer and loudly alerts his team members. Graves tells him to lower his voice, asking him where he noticed the CIA agents. Just as Smith is about to answer, she fires her gun, telling him to not bother himself, as helicopters arrive, shining their spotlight down on them. "They're here!" Mandy exclaims. Smith turns to Polnick, seeking permission to launch Willie Pete, which is CIA, speak for phosphorus grenades, as Polnick translates. Loudermilk's voice rings out from the radio he's talking into as he shouts, "Polnick, this is it, my friend. This is the end of the line." Smith recognizes the voice and realizes Loudermilk has declared war. Robert turns to Polnick and asks what the plan is. All Polnick needed to say was freestyle before Graves and Smith open fire, making easy work of their targets, a clear indication of their time in the CIA. Smith utters, "See you later, Terminator Terminators as he fires his machine gun. Graves wishes Smith was not as trigger-happy as he is looking at him firing his machine gun. Robert says that is just how Phil is as shots are fired in their direction. Robert takes cover, but Mandy jumps over a tree log, saying she feels sorry for the CIA agents as she fires too. Killing the agents, making Robert point out her actions, make her seem super apologetic. Meanwhile, the enforcer ambushes the bad blood predator while he is gorging on some human meat. The two fight it out using a plethora of weapons and attacks, known only to their kind. Polnick hides behind a tree as CIA agents are tracking him. He wonders how it all went awry. People are dying for no good reason. He contemplates this was the exact reason he left, and why his other CIA teammates did too. Now they are caught up in it. They only have two options: kill or be killed, and they are stuck in an endless cycle of violence. The only person to blame for their plight is Loudermilk, but he isn't the only one responsible. The two predators who decided to bring their personal fight to Earth are to blame too. He wonders aloud whether they know. Nobody wants to die in New Jersey. Loudermilk crackles on his radio from his helicopter, warning Polnick he cannot keep hiding forever, and the only way he and his team will leave the Pine Barrens will be in body bags. Polnick retorts. Loudermilk isn't safe, as well as none of them will leave the Pine Barrens alive as the fight between the two predators continues. The last stand. As bullets keep raining down from the helicopter, Robert realizes they are cornered. Smith says he does not want to sound like a cynic, but their situation seems dire. Polnick agrees and says they are taking their last stand and will not back down even in the face of the unfavorable odds. Things are bound to go southward from here on out. The fight rages on between the two predators in another clearing in the forest. Tired of evading bullets, Polnick challenges Loudermilk, telling him to stop hiding behind fancy machine guns and the CIA. He taunts Loudermilk, saying he should stop using other people to settle their personal scores and come face them directly instead on the forest ground. This only irks Loudermilk more as the gunfire increases in intensity, putting Polnick and his team in a worse situation. Smith scoffs at Polnick. "There's your answer," he says, and teases him for making Loudermilk angry. Polnick jokes Loudermilk's reaction was probably to something he said. Up in the helicopter, Loudermilk orders agent buyers to change radio frequencies and cut Polnick off from their communications. He says he does not want to hear Polnick's voice ever again unless he is gasping for air as he takes his last breaths. Mandy Graves points out they cannot keep hiding forever while bullets keep flying their way. Polnick replies they have no choice as they are surrounded with no means of escape. Smith does not agree as he readies his bazooka and says, "To hell with no choice. I've got my weapon of choice right here," he adds. He has been waiting to use it, and all he needs is one clear shot. Robert remarks that by the looks of it, Loudermilk shows no signs of pausing or letting up on the gunfire, which might just give them enough time to counter the attack with the bazooka. Smith snaps back, saying he is done waiting for the right time and declares they should take the fight straight to Loudermilk. Smith lets out a battle cry and asks the rest of them whether they are willing to stand by him while he takes this dangerous stance. He also warns them a tiny mistake would mean certain death. Polnick and the Graves decide to go for it and come out of hiding. They launch an attack, laying down cover as Smith readies himself to take the shot. The CIA agents alert Loudermilk as they notice the gunfire. One of them also notices the bazooka Smith is holding and informs Loudermilk. Loudermilk orders the machine gun operator to stop him from firing and gun him down. Loudermilk roars, "Kill him! Kill him!" as the deafening sound of bullets fills the air with dread. Sure enough, Smith takes a bullet in his shoulder and recoils, sending the bazooka flying out of his hand. While the humans are engaging in gun battle, the two predators are still going at each other, one hoping to end the other. Their fight gets so intense, a fire engulfs the area, but that doesn't stop them. Green alien blood seeps into the forest floor as the two predators face off. Loudermilk is tired of dealing with Polnick and his pals and calls in the second helicopter for backup. The pilot, Perry, answers, informing his boss he noticed a raging fire in one part of the forest, Sector 10, and wants to check it out to ensure it is not a cause for concern. Loudermilk okays the mission and asks Perry to hurry up. He complains about Polnick and his team wasting his time and wants to give them a fitting answer. Meanwhile, on the ground, Polnick applies a compress over Smith's bullet wound to stop the bleeding. Perry moves in closer and informs Loudermilk he sees one of their alien targets lying motionless on the ground. He closes in to confirm whether it is dead. The bad blood predator launches his spear towards the helicopter helicopter, and before Loudermilk can warn him, the spear makes contact, piercing through the windshield, shattering it, and impales Perry. The chopper explodes in a huge ball of fire as Loudermilk asks Perry for an update. He doesn't get a response. Garvin informs Loudermilk the second helicopter has gone down, taking Perry with it. Hearing this, Loudermilk orders all the agents to move their operations to Sector 10. Agent Byers asks what they should do about Polnick and his pals. Loudermilk tells him to leave them be. Byers protests, but before he can get a word out, Loudermilk explains they have a brief window to take action. If I lose an alien, I lose it to outer space, he continues. He adds that Polnick and his team have nowhere to go. They will still be in the Pine Barrens. Robert admits he doesn't have a good feeling about the CIA retreating just like that. Polnick agrees, but remarks that they need to focus on Smith and tend to his injury first. Smith grumbles and flips Polnick off. Robert and Polnick begin helping Smith while Mandy runs reconnaissance. Robert tells his wife to stay alert and safe out there as they don't know what to expect. After Mandy circles the perimeter twice, she informs Robert over the comms that she didn't find any sign of the two predators. "They're honestly gone. There's no one here," she says before her comms cut off abruptly, sending Robert into panic. Robert, Polnick and Smith run towards Mandy as they hear gunshots. They locate her and see her standing over the enforcer's dead body, smoke emanating from her gun. She assures them she's okay and insists they get moving. Robert asks her where they are headed. Mandy ominously replies she has knowledge of the Bad Blood's next move. Mandy leads the way, informing the group that the enforcer landed on Earth in some kind of a landing pod, and the Bad Blood predator is making its way to it as they speak. She continues, the spaceship is fitted with a tracking beacon to call for the mothership for rescue. The Bad Blood predator is plotting to bring that ship down. Robert interrupts his wife, asking her how she got this information. Mandy informs him the enforcer told her as it was breathing its last. Surprised, Robert confirms what he heard was right. That thing talked? He asks inquisitively. Mandy clarifies the enforcer was somewhat coherent. Its words sounded like a patchwork of different voices stitched together. Continuing, Mandy says the enforcer told her about hunting the Bad Blood predator and holds up a device that it gave her to track down the pod. Robert asks Mandy why she shot the enforcer if it had provided her with such valuable information. Mandy replies she pulled the trigger simply because the enforcer asked her to. Meanwhile, in a different part of the forest, the Bad Blood predator finds the enforcer's pod and is able to break inside. Up in the air, Loudermilk notices something is disrupting their signal. The pilot notices their radio is acting up as well. Loudermilk demands answers from Agent Garvin. Garvin manages to inform Loudermilk that something is interfering with their communications and disrupting their transmissions with a jammer he has never seen before, his voice breaking with static. Loudermilk orders him to find out where the signal is coming from immediately. Polnick and his pals continue following Mandy to locate the enforcer's pod. Robert is exhausted and asks Mandy where the pod is. Smith says the Bad Blood predator might have already located it and escaped. Polnick notices something in the air and tells the rest of them to listen. "Ladies and gentlemen, once again Claude Loudermilk," the CIA boss declares as helicopters hover above the ex-CIA agents. Smith says their standoff with the agency is nearing its end. Loudermilk notices the enforcer's drop pod and orders the deployment of a CIA unit to set up a perimeter. He tells the pilot, Dietz, to not get too close, otherwise they will meet the same fate as Perry, the pilot of the second helicopter, who tragically died while inspecting a fire caused by the two predators fighting. Loudermilk informs Dietz the predator who triggered the signal is nearby and they need to stay sharp. Loudermilk notices the Bad Blood has made its way into the trees above and is standing on a branch, the CIA helicopter in its eye line. He orders Dietz to fly them out, but it is too late as the Bad Blood predator leaps from the tree branch and into the helicopter, attacking the occupants viciously. One by one, the Bad Blood predator kills the CIA agents until Loudermilk is the last one left. Bleeding, Loudermilk stands up to the Bad Blood predator, telling it to finish the job. On the ground, Mandy says, "My God, listen to the screams," as the ex-CIA agents look on. Polnick sarcastically says it must have been dangerous and he regrets missing out. Robert notices the helicopter is about to crash as they see it go up in a ball of fire. Mandy asks her teammates whether they think the crash took the Bad Blood predator down with it. Smith answers he honestly does not think that is the case. Sure enough, the The bad blood predator is alive and well as it makes its way through the forest to end the last few people who have a fighting chance to put an end to its killing spree. Smith, Polnick, Mandy, and Robert notice the bad blood predator and quickly get to work. Polnick orders his teammates to spread out and surround the bad blood. Robert complies, while Smith gets ready to launch phosphorus grenades from his bazooka. Mandy tells him to not get too close. Smith defies her, saying he is ready to fire. Suddenly, the bad blood predator launches a net with hooks attached to its corners in Smith's direction. It contracts and tightens on Smith, rendering him immobile as blood pours from his hands and head. His bazooka is now facing backward and misfires. Robert is in the way of the blast and catches on fire accidentally. The bad blood predator picks Robert up in the air and plunges its weapon into his head. Seeing this, Mandy resolves to end the beast. She cocks her gun to fire. She manages to fire a shot, but it misses the bad blood as it breaks her gun-wielding hand. Mandy screams in pain as Polnick tells her to make a run for it and starts firing. Furious, Polnick lunges at the bad blood predator and hits it with the stock of his gun. He engages in hand-to-hand combat, landing blows on the bad blood predator. "It's never enough for you, is it, freak?" he accuses while naming his slain friends that were unfortunate victims of the bad blood. He continues, saying the bad blood collected its victims like trophies. As he's saying this, the bad blood retaliates by punching Polnick. The bad blood crushes Polnick's back while telling him its thirst for blood can never be quenched. Noticing Deputy Kelso's head on the bad blood's belt, Polnick rams it into the bad blood's mouth in defiance. The bad blood predator gets distracted and discards Polnick's disemboweled body like trash. It shifts its focus to munching on Kelso's head. This provides Mandy with the perfect opportunity to gun down the bad blood as it is distracted. She fires till the bad blood is down. The nightmare is over. Smoke emanates from her gun as she kneels on the floor, defeated. It cost her everything: her husband, her friends, and even her hand that is now dangling from the predator's attack. Mandy feels weak from the pain and is too tired to get up and flee. Besides, everything is on fire and she can't see a way out. Suddenly, the predator mothership descends on the scene as predators rope down to the ground. "What's the matter? Couldn't stand seeing somebody be left alive?" Mandy asks them accusatorily and continues. They couldn't leave her to die in peace and had to finish the job. Holding her gun to her head in defiance, she says she will not let them kill her. The CIA terminate the mission as Agent Garvin, who is acting commander, now informs the troops that a clean-up crew is on the way from Langley. They are also setting up a press conference to take control of the situation. Garvin acknowledges it will be quite a difficult task to cover up the massacre and decides to gather the remaining troops from the ground. Over the comms, he activates a code blue evacuation and orders the CIA troops to pull out. Polnick and his pals take the rap for the massacre as broadcasted by the news. The broadcast continues reporting that 4 of them, 3 men and a woman, died in a forest fire that resulted in a shootout with the federal authorities. One of them was identified as John Polnick, a local of the rural town of Stone Hill River, New Jersey. This news shook up the small town. In an interview, a local resident describes Polnick as a seemingly nice guy. "I guess you just never can tell what kind of monsters we got out here," he continues, and adds, "How scary it is just to think about." Mandy watches this news introspectively, smoking a cigarette with her hand in a bandage. That brings us to the end of this action-packed comic series. We have all seen the Terminator Arnold Schwarzenegger face off against a predator, and the predators facing the xenomorphs in Aliens vs Predators. But in all these battles, they followed the Yautja Code of Honor. Here, we finally got a glimpse of what happens when a predator breaks this code. Bad bloods go on a killing spree, no holds barred. Predator Bad Blood remains one of the most iconic Predator comics which paved the way for Bad Bloods in the franchise.